Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 340 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is now out on Amazon. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up that book today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, my daughter and I toured Columbia University in New York City this summer, and we absolutely fell in love with that campus. Even though it's right in the middle of Manhattan with taxis and people all around, this park-like campus was protected by buildings all around, and it was just stunning. You would have no idea that you were in the middle of Manhattan, which made it really fun, but you still have all of the benefits of living in a big city. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Our next guest believes that the key to health and economic prosperity is to empower our younger generations to stay healthy rather than wait until they get sick to take action. Focusing on diagnosing and treating diseases is foundationally and fatally flawed and will lead to lower life expectancy, reduced wealth, and mental health deterioration for our younger generations. As a board-certified integrative medical doctor with a special area of expertise in Eastern medicine, and as a board-certified OB-GYN, and most importantly, as a mom of two amazing Gen Z kids, she has embraced the fusion of Eastern and Western medicine as the path forward. I hope that you will join her on that path to wholeness. Welcome, Dr. Mylaine Riobé.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here on Fraternity Foodie.
It is a pleasure to have you. I love talking about medicine. I love talking about health. Certainly Gen Z. I'm also the dad to two Gen Z kids, so they're all about health and nutrition. So I can think of nothing better to talk about. But before we get to all of that, we just had this amazing, we had the Final Four, and then we have this basketball championship being played just recently in the NCAA. You were actually the first basketball player in your high school to score 1,000 points. Talk about basketball, women's basketball, and how it helped you early on in life.
Wow, it was everything. It really was. And I know in the overall scheme of life, basketball doesn't seem like it's that big a deal, but it's how it focuses you in. And it dials you in. And, we just had a magical team, a magical coach. We did things nobody expected us to do, including for me as a personal accomplishment, being the first kid, because I was a kid back then, to score 1,000 points in our school history. And what it really did was it taught me to be selfless. It taught me that I was part of a team and that no matter what personal accomplishments I had, if we didn't win that game, it was all out the window, right? And so it really taught me to look at other people as being the focal point of what I do. And that really opened a door that made me love what I do for a living now, medicine, really looking to help other people. It's about the other people, because without them, there's no you. Yeah. And that's what basketball did for me.
That's such a great life lesson. I mean, I'm sure there were people on that high school basketball team, maybe one person that was really good at 3-point shots, another person that was really good at defense to lock down a game at the end. And so you're just learning to depend on other people in order to get to that ultimate goal. That's just like a huge lesson for life. I mean, it's not just high school basketball we're talking about here.
Everything. Trust. You trust that person's going to be right at that spot when you throw the ball there, and they're there. You trust that 5 people are going to show up and play defense, and they do. It's amazing that the power of thought and trust, it's big.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, of course, you did decide on Columbia University for your undergraduate experience. That campus is just beautiful. I mean, that's a park. So what made you choose Columbia?
It's an interesting story. I think I was about 8 years old when I walked across the Columbia campus for the first time. My dad was walking with me and my grandma to take her to her doctor. I think it was a urologist that she would see at Columbia. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I walked onto this I don't even know what to call it, right? It was like an oasis in the middle of a concrete jungle.
Right.
And I was like, where are we? What is this place? And I remember my dad saying, oh, this is a world-renowned university. It's Columbia University. It's where people come from all over the world to study. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to go here. And then we just kept walking. We took grandma to her doctor and we went home, and I completely forgot about Columbia University because I was 8 or 9. I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. And then fast forward, literally like the beginning of my senior year in high school. And I remember just shooting around one day before practice, and my coach is yelling out from his office, hey, Mylaine, where do you want to go to school next year? And I was in the middle of a shot. I'm like, Columbia, and I just kept shooting. And he was like, oh, cool. And the next day they called. And that was the only school I applied to. I applied early admission. I didn't even apply to any other schools. I figured if I didn't get in, I would then apply to other schools. And I got in. And I went to school there, and it was an amazing experience. And years later, I stay in touch with my coach because he's my rock. He's an awesome, awesome guy. So to this day, we're still in touch. And somehow we got on the conversation of Columbia, and I always assumed that he called them. He made the call. And he told me a few years ago, he's like, I never called Columbia University. They called me. And it just happened to be that timing. And so that's how I ended up there. It was a great, it's got its ups and downs, like any school, like anything in life. But overall, it was, there's so many lessons learned there, so many friends made that I'm still in touch with today. It was just a great experience. And if anyone has the opportunity to go to that school, don't give it up.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell my daughter. I'm sure if she gets in, I guarantee you she'll be walking that campus. So we'll see how it all plays out. It should be very, very
Good luck to her. Yeah, absolutely.
I just found out that she just graduated. She will graduate valedictorian of her high school. So I think things are setting up nicely, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful place to be.
So you're now a double board certified medical doctor in this exciting new field of integrative and functional medicine. What made you choose this particular field of medicine?
I think it chose me. I didn't really choose it. I was going to regular medical school. That's all I knew growing up. Everybody that surrounded me was in the medical field, either a doctor, a nurse, a dentist, an EKG technician, something. I grew up practically in a hospital. So I knew that I was going to be a doctor. And so I became an OB-GYN first. And I felt like I just walked into a brick wall as soon as I graduated, and it just was not what I expected. And, we're told that training is hard. So we expect that to be the worst of the worst. We're dealing with the sickest of the sick, and it was very gratifying to be saving people's lives when they were right on the brink of death all day. That's what training felt like. I was in the middle of Philadelphia and then Columbia, South Carolina for my training. When I went into private practice, I expected to be able to transition into wellness because that's really why I went into OB-GYN, was for women's wellness. And that never happened. I just never felt like it was a match for me. It had nothing to do with wellness. All I was doing was diagnosing diseases all day or telling people I didn't know why they felt the way they felt. The most common symptom that patients have is fatigue by far and away. It doesn't matter what they come in for. Inevitably, they will tell you just how tired they actually are during your interaction if you talk to them long enough. And we didn't learn anything in medical school. And I always had a bit of a Buddhist bent to me, just philosophically, even as a child. And I said, there's just got to be a better way. And we got exposed to one little elective in medical school on acupuncture. And I remember sitting through this elective and I was like, this can't be, it just didn't make any sense. It didn't fit my Western training. And so the little voice in my head said, you know what, go give that a shot. Go check that out, since what you're doing doesn't seem to be very gratifying. And so I actually studied Eastern medicine first. And that just blew the lid open for me. It taught me to understand medicine and health in an entirely different way. And then that's what opened the door for me to go into integrative and functional medicine as well, because it's a more holistic, modern system. So it blended much better with my philosophy. So I kind of tumbled my way through and ended up in integrative medicine, and now I'm board certified as of 2017.
Nice, really nice. And I think that's another great lesson for the college students who are listening today, which is that, we all go into this with the best of intentions. We think
Mhm.
that it's a straight line to success, that we're going to know exactly what we want to do, and everything is just going to, the seas are going to part somehow, and immediately you're going to be at success. But the reality is, it's a series of left turns, right turns, wrong turns, U-turns, to try to figure out what is the best path. And I'm not even going to try to compare, going through accounting to med school, because I mean, what you went through was way more demanding than what I went through. But you know what? I got into being an accountant in the real world, and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, this is the most boring stuff ever. These are debits and credits, and I'm like, I mean, I have a creative part to me, and that part of me was literally dying. And
Yeah.
so I knew just instinctively, I'm not in the right place. As much as I had thought that this is what the goal was going to be, it wasn't. And that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yep.
And so just making college students aware that sometimes you're going to make some wrong turns, and it's all right. It's just a matter of finding what it is that is fulfilling to you.
And I
Um,
wouldn't even say they're wrong turns.
yeah.
They're just turns, and you can't really, what I tell people, straight lines don't actually exist in nature. Like,
Right.
straight lines are man-made. They're made up in our heads.
Right.
If you look at nature, there's no straight line in nature.
Yeah.
So this idea that everything's a straight line is just our own mental construct that we just need to blow through and realize, no, we're going to be meandering, just like a river, just
Yeah.
like the ocean, just like anything, just like a bud unfolds, that's life.
You make a really good point. Maybe it's really not a wrong turn. Maybe it was just there to teach us where we're supposed to be. So it was actually intended, but we don't look at it in our mind that way.
Right. And I didn't either. This is me talking. This is my old self talking, not my 20 something self that was cursing, upset.
Now, doctor, you're obviously in great shape. I mean, you're a fitness buff. You won your first figure competition 6 months after giving birth to your daughter. So
Yeah.
talk to us about what's involved when you're training for figure competitions.
Wow, I think medical school prepared me for that too, like the rigors. But you got to get a great trainer. That's number one. You got to get a trainer who has the experience that you want to gain and has done what you want to do. So you got to scope out the gym and make sure that you pick the right person to guide you, and then once you have that, you literally just do what they say. And you have to love the thing, right? You have to love what you do. If you don't like fitness, don't twist yourself into a pretzel because you want to lose weight, or don't make it fit. But if you really love it, go get it, go after it, find that person who's going to be able to coach and guide you through it. And then you just show up. The accountability is really important. You show up. And then I always tell people, become a student of that thing you want to be. So I started reading all kinds of bodybuilding books, and back then we didn't have the internet quite as much, although we kind of did. But it was more books for me. I'm still a book person. So I read, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. I did all those types of things. So I had a really good sense of what I was walking into. And I'd always worked out. I've been working out since high school. My coach forced me to go to the gym to put muscle mass on. And so it's that. It's showing up every day. And it's really 90% kitchen, 10% gym. What you eat is really more important than how much weight you lift. But I mean, of course, you have to do both. But most people think, oh, I'll just go out muscle my food. You can't out muscle your food. You really they both have to be partners in what you want to achieve. And then give yourself enough time, because you don't want to force your body through anything, because you can get sick trying to get ready for a competition. And I did watch some people actually get sick. One of my friends even landed in the hospital after a competition because it was trying to do too much too soon. So make sure that you give yourself advanced time and you consult with someone first, so they can kind of give you a sense of how long it's going to take to get you into the shape that you need to be in to achieve the goal you want to achieve.
Yeah, another great life lesson there. If you want to get somewhere, just work with a mentor, somebody who's been there and has done that, and
Right.
find the right person for you. So that's really, really good advice. And the college students who are listening right now, I know that they have extreme fatigue and they have burnout. Like you can see it in their eyes when
Mhm.
we're speaking on college campuses. I mean, number one, they're exhausted, they're not getting enough sleep, but they're also just burnt out. So what's your advice to them?
There's a 3-minute breathing technique that has changed the lives of many of my clients that I learned years ago. Um, and what it does is it just drives more oxygen down into your body. And it helps your body to recover a lot faster. So I talk about 4 pillars of health with all my clients. One is eating. We already touched on that. 2 is movement. We've touched on that, working out. The third is resting. Especially college kids, teenagers, if you are a biological female, you need at least 8 hours. I'm sorry, you need at least, 8 hours. I had that right.
Mhm.
You need at least 7 hours. If you're actually tired all the time, you actually need to add an hour to that. They say you can't catch up on sleep, but you actually can. You just have to make it a consistent thing that you do, and then you will catch up on it. And then detox. Now, college kids, probably aren't into doing detoxes and cleanses, and that's something you have to do under the guidance of someone. But under the rest part, the part of sleep, also you have to actually breathe better, because if you're not breathing properly all day, there's not really enough, you're not going to have enough time to sleep and catch up with not having breathe correctly
Mhm.
throughout the day. So it's a really quick breathing technique, and it's only through the nostrils. And you literally try and just take a 5-second inhale, just really slow and really quiet. Like you don't even want to hear yourself breathe. You just want to slowly bring that breath in and count to 5, and then let it right back out through the nostrils again for 5 seconds again. That's actually a 10-second breath. And when I went to medical school, we learned that if someone only breathes 6 times in a minute, that they're dying.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
In this case, it's actually that you are driving more oxygen into your body. And the more oxygen you drive into your body and the better you eat, those are going to combine and create energy. And that's going to lift you out of burnout. So doing that for like 3 minutes, a few times a day, maybe 2, 3 times a day, before you get out of bed in the morning, before you fall asleep at night, and then maybe one more time in the middle of the day. I mean, you could literally be in the bathroom and do this breathing technique. So that's what I recommend to people that don't have time, like college students, is to do that. If you do have the time, add a little bit of meditation, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, and that should really help to lift people up. And I don't think college kids eat enough.
Mm.
And skipping breakfast has gotten to be really popular. I don't think most people are designed to actually miss breakfast, and Eastern medicine is actually the science that teaches us that the most. So if you're tired and you're skipping breakfast, make sure you throw that meal back in.
Yeah, that's great advice too. I see so many college students just leaving their dorm or leaving the fraternity and sorority house. They're in a rush. They totally skip breakfast. That is like out the window. Everything is just rush, rush, rush. There's just not enough. Way back when, I mean, I know that in fraternity and sorority houses, we used to sit down for meals together, and that was really like the big gathering point. And now it's just like so on the go, and it's like I'll grab a granola bar and run out the door, but they don't like settle down and have a healthy breakfast. It's just I need to take something and get to class quick. I'm not sleeping enough. It's a cycle. And
The funny thing, Michael, is when you actually put yourself first and you take the time to have the breakfast and you take the time to go to sleep, you actually create more time in your day because you're so much more efficient,
yeah.
at what you do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, for older folks listening, like me, because I don't know how you do it. I mean, you've somehow found the fountain of youth. I don't know how you've done it, but I need to know more. What safe and effective steps do you take in your practice in order to reverse aging?
Reversing aging is all about lifestyle, right? So over the years, they've tried to create all kinds of supplements and, this blockbuster supplement, that blockbuster supplement. None of them work ultimately. The only thing that works is just the solid 4 pillars: eating, moving, resting, and detoxing. Now, detoxing is a little bit tricky. Like your body knows how to detox itself. So when I say detox, what I mean is to make sure that your body is actually detoxing itself, which is based on the other three pillars: the eating, the moving, and the resting. So the most important step in reversing aging is to know what I call your dynamic metabolic type. And that's loosely based in Eastern medicine. So in Eastern medicine, when we talk about fatigue, they actually consider fatigue to be a disease and not just a symptom or a sign like we do, because they understand the word disease. Disease is the same as discomfort, and that would be closer to a symptom and not really a disease. And so in our modern system, we kind of veer off because we think that people have to get really sick before we pay attention. Whereas in Eastern medicine, they want to kill every symptom before it takes root by treating it at its root, so that you never have what we would diagnose as a disease. And so that is really the fountain of youth, is to really, for every little symptom, especially fatigue, because fatigue is, in my opinion, the root of all evil, because fatigue is a sign that your metabolism is weak or stuck. And so if you know your dynamic metabolic type, what I call a dynamic metabolic type, you'll know if you're tired because your energy is stuck or too deficient. So I'm not talking about the metabolic types that we hear about, the mesomorphs, the endomorphs, and the ectomorphs. I'm talking about things, there's 6 dynamic metabolic types. One is a cold deficient dynamic metabolic type. The other one is a cold excess. The next one is a hot deficient. The fourth one is a hot excess. And then the 5th and 6th are temperature neutral, excess, or deficient. Body temperature has a lot to do with health. When people are too cold, their metabolism's sluggish and it's not moving properly. They actually need to eat warm, well-cooked foods. If someone is deficient and depleted, they can't skip breakfast. They have to actually eat like a bodybuilder, like every 3 hours. If someone has a stuck metabolism, they're the ones that are going to be better off doing the fasting, because fasting's draining. It's going to drain out toxins and garbage and junk, and that's going to get you unstuck. So knowing your dynamic metabolic type is the secret to knowing how to erect those 4 pillars and keep them up so that you reverse aging and you stay healthy.
You have so much great information to share. I know you've been writing books. I see Faith there in the background. You also wrote the book, The Answer to Cancer. What is the answer to cancer?
You know, it sounds obnoxious, but the answer to cancer is never getting it. And we don't have that in our current medical paradigm. In our Western model, we just wait for people to get cancer and then we treat it. That's not the answer to cancer. The answer to cancer isn't to try and find a cure for cancer. The answer to cancer is to actually keep people that don't yet have cancer from ever getting it. And then if you do have it, to reverse engineer why you got it and correct that. Because why you get cancer is also the way that you prevent cancer. They're actually the same things, except once you have cancer, it's a lot harder to reverse engineer that path. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you start with a symptom as minor as fatigue is actually a root cause of cancer, because it's a sign of a weak or stuck metabolism. And we rely on metabolism to prevent cancer. We rely on metabolism to prevent every disease that we can think of, because metabolism, in short, is how we make and use energy. And that your body has to make its own energy from the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe. And so every single cell all over your body has to make its own energy and then exchange that energy for function. So everything from your vision, your reproduction, movement, speaking, thinking, your body has to make and use all that energy from scratch. And that's what we call metabolism. So fatigue is the earliest warning sign that could lead to cancer if you don't treat it properly. So knowing why you're tired, and then we can usually tell that through the dynamic metabolic typing. And then again, erecting those 4 pillars so that you have a solid foundation. That's the answer to cancer. It's actually not getting it. That's why I'm so passionate about working with our younger generations before they run into the trouble. So once you run into that trouble, it's just a lot harder to get yourself out. Whereas it's a lot easier to keep yourself healthy if you know what to do.
Yeah, you and I are a lot alike in that we both focus on youth and we both focus on prevention. I might be out there talking about hazing prevention or sexual assault prevention or alcohol and drug abuse prevention, but it's for all the same reasons why you're focused on what you're focused on. And so
Right.
I see a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
And so that's really good. The last thing I wanted to ask you about is what can our listeners do in order to create a wellness plan? And I'm thinking, holistically.
Yeah, so the easiest thing, right? It's easy and it's hard, I guess, is to partner with a board certified integrative medical doctor, functional medical doctor, and then allow them to kind of guide you through the process. Another way is, we've created an online coaching program because I'm really about self-empowerment. I don't think we should have to schlep to the doctor's office constantly to have someone tell us what to do to stay healthy. I think it should be taught in schools. I think it should be part of our culture. I think it's something we should just simply know. And so I created a course called the Wellness Warrior 9-Week Transformation Program to help people figure out their dynamic metabolic types so that they know what to eat, how much sleep they need, how to detox properly, what exercises will help them. Even something as important as whether or not you should fast, it depends on who you are. So if you have a deficient dynamic metabolic type, you don't want to fast. It's actually going to make you worse. So having the self-empowerment to understand, who am I, what are my propensities, and how do I create my 4 pillars around that, so that I strengthen my weaknesses, if I have any, and keep my strengths high and strong. That way I stay healthy. It's a matter of self-empowerment and learning, who am I and what do I need to do to stay healthy? Because it's personal. Everybody has a different path to take to be well. And so either partnering with a holistic integrative medical doctor, or you're welcome to take our online course. It's our signature online course, the Wellness Warrior 9-Week Transformation Program.
I'm so happy that you offer that because I mean, a lot of people, they want to be healthy, they want a wellness plan, but they just don't know where to go to get it.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's just conditioned. Well, I have to schlep to the doctor's office, and he's going to somehow tell me what to do. But maybe that's once a year. I mean, and then between that, there's all this time, right? There's 12 months. So anyway, but I'm glad that you offer that, and we'll talk a little bit about getting plugged in there. But the one last thing I wanted to talk about, I know you're all about nutrition and food, and good food at that, that's going to power this machine, right? So
Yes.
we love great food here too at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. So where should we go if we're in your neck of the woods and we want a great meal in Palm City, Florida? Where should we go?
You should keep going through Palm City, Florida, go over the bridge into Stuart, Florida.
There you go.
It's only a 10-minute ride. Palm City's tiny. There aren't really that many restaurants, more like a bunch of developments where people live, not much shopping or restaurant activity here. So you just keep going across the bridge into Stuart. There's a place called the District Table. It's a farm to table restaurant. And if they still have their osso buco, I would highly recommend that. It's super amazing and yummy. They've got a great menu of other options, and it's just fresh, farm to table.
Love it. That's a really good fresh option there. I like that a lot. So that's all great. All right. So if our listeners, they're obviously going to be very interested in your course. They're going to want to go and buy your books. They were going to want to invite you to come and speak on their campus. So where should they go to connect with you and get all of this great stuff?
Awesome. Yeah. So you can just go to our website, awakenedwellnessnow.com, and awakened ends in an ED, awakenedwellnessnow.com. You can take our burnout assessment to figure out your dynamic metabolic type. We've got a free training there. You can contact us for speaking engagements. I love to speak to everybody, but in particular, millennials, Gen Z. I think it's so important to get the message out of self-empowerment for health.
Dr. Riobé, I got to tell you, you are an amazing person. I appreciate everything that you bring to the table, that you're willing to share all of this and take time out of your busy schedule to speak with some of these Gen Z students that are listening to us right now. So what can I say? Thank you. Thank you so much for being you and sharing this information.
Thank you, Michael. It's been beautiful having me here on Fraternity Foodie, and Sending many, many blessings to all of those college kids out there, wishing them tremendous success, as I do for you and your daughter.
Thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Riobé, make sure that you like it and share it on social media. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're going to see you next time.